What's up, poker people YouTube? Welcome back to the Voting Vlogs. We're here at TCH Houston for another session of 1-3 Hold'em. Let's get inside and into the action. So getting straight into the vlog, we buy into this 1-3 no limit Hold'em match stack at TCH Houston for $2,000. Want to make sure we're covering the table for the most part. If not, we want to be able to max our value, even if other people are covering us. So you look down at ace king offsuit in the first hand, under the gun +1. The under the gun straddle is on. It's a 1-3-6, open for $25, and only the under the gun calls. Heads up to a flop, which comes queen, jack, 9, 2 spades, and a club. We don't have a club though, so when the under the gun checks, we're going to check. I can usually barrel range here, but I don't want to barrel with no equity and not even a spade in our hand, so we're just going to check it. Turns the deuce of clubs, under the gun checks again, and this card doesn't help us obviously, so we're just going to check once more. River's the jack of diamonds, under the gun checks, and we check. And the under gun has 9-8 offsuit, so they're going to take that first one down. Here's some footage of our good buddy Jello from Next Gen Poker. Obviously playing some poker with us. You've seen him in some previous vlogs if you haven't checked out the channel, Next Gen Poker, and he obviously takes this one down because he's such a great player, of course. Let's try to make some money of our own though. We look down at pocket sevens and under the gun straddle. The cutoff, the button, small blind, and big blind all limp to $6. Very standard in Texas if you didn't know. We're going to go ahead and pop it up to $50, obviously a lot larger of a size, and we're just trying to isolate and thin the field as much as possible. And it does just that, only the cutoff calls. So heads up to a flop, which comes 5, deuce, deuce, rainbow. It's a very favorable flop for us, given that we have the overpair. We're going to c-bet here for $30. In theory, this doesn't connect a lot with our pre-flop raising range, except for pocket pairs, but we're going to obviously try to deny equity from his overpair or overcards, and obviously try to make some money from those. So we bet $30 down betting, and the cutoff calls. Turns a 5 of spades is another great card. We can get value from ace highs and other things that might float, like jack, queen, king, X. But I mistakenly check here, and I'm just going to try to get lighter calls on the river by checking here, making it look like I'm going to try to steal on the river. But I think it's probably right to just bet here on the turn. The river's a 6 of hearts, and now there's 178 in the pot, so we go for a sizing of $110. Trying to get called by some ace X type hand or a non-believing king, queen, or jack, but obviously that doesn't work, and the cutoff folds. Quick one here, we look down at ace-7 of diamonds and the cutoff. We open for $15, the button calls, and the small blind, our good buddy Jello, has those green chips, and he makes it $75, so we're just going to have to make the fold here, and unfortunately not going to know what he has in this one. Moving right along, however, we look down at ace-jack offsuit and the low jack. The under the gun straddle is on once again. We open for $30, and only the button calls in this one. Heads up to a flop, which comes king, 5, 4, rainbow. This does obviously hit our range, given that we have a lot of king, queen, ace, king, all those types of hands. So we're going to continue here for $25. Down betting, and the button calls once again. Turns a deuce of spades. Given that we don't turn any more equity like a gut shot, we're just going to check this one with our ace high showdown, and the button checks back. River's the 5 of hearts, and we're just going to check it once again. The button checks back, and the button has pocket 10 to take this one from us. We're looking down at a lot of premiums today. We look down at ace king offsuit and under the gun +1. We opened for $15. The cutoff, button, and big blind all call. So 4 ways to a flop, which comes queen, 5, deuce. This is unfortunate for us because although we would like to barrel 2 multi-ways, so there's going to be a lot of times where someone has something like queen, jack, queen 10, so it just checks through. Turns a 4 clubs, and the big blind leads for $35, and we just fold this spot. And immediately, next hand, ace-9 of hearts in the button straddle, small blind, big blind, hijack, all limp to 6. Like I said, it's very standard in Texas for these people to just be limping a lot of hands trying to see a flop. We're just going to go ahead and make it $40 on the button, and everyone folds. So it's an easy way to steal $18, $20 here or there. When all these people limp, you can raise it and just take it. So yes, it's only $20, but that $20 piles up and goes a long way if you're able to do it very often. Got a real quick fun one. It's big lick, 69 suited in the hijack. The button straddle's on. Big blind, under the gun, limp to 6. Very standard, like I said. We opened for $40, and surprisingly this time, the button, under the gun, call. 3 players to flop, which comes jack, 7, 3, rainbow. Under the gun checks. I c-bet for $60, and the button and under the gun both fold. Jack was very curious about that one. He wanted to raise on that one, and he also wanted to look us up. Later, I would tell him we had 69, and it's going to bite us in the butt because he's going to get us back for that one later. In this one, we have king 10 offsuit, under the gun straddle, the cutoff, small blind, big blind, limp to 6. We go ahead and just check this one. King 10's a pretty good hand, but it's not like the best. There's a lot of reverse implied odds against better kings, so we don't want to bloat the pot here. Flop is very favorable though. It's king, jack, 10, two hearts and a diamond. So we flop two pair, small blind, big blind check. We go for $15. Don't have to go very big. And both the cutoff and big blind call. Three players continuing to the turn now, which is the three of clubs and absolute brick. Big blind checks, we go for $25. Like I said, we don't have to go too big. We don't want to bloat all of our equity and then find ourselves in a really weird spot where someone might have king, jack, or queen, nine. So $25 it is, cutoff and big blind call once again. Rivers is six of diamonds, big blind checks. We go for $65. Like I said, we don't have to go too big. If someone raises, this is a very clear cut fold, but we can still get value from something like king, queen, or a worse king. So we go for $65. The cutoff folds and the big blind calls, and our king 10 offsuit is good. Man, we are just looking at a bunch of ace king premiums here. Ace king of diamonds in the small blind. Button straddle is on. We open for $30, very standard. The +1 and the hijack call. So three customers to a flop, which comes jack, 10, 5. Two diamonds and a spade, so we have the gut shot to Broadway as well as a nut flush draw. We're going to see bet this board given that we have equity. We go for $50 and both players surprisingly call. Turns a beautiful card though. It's the king of spades, so now we have top with the nut flush draw. We can size up at this point and we go for $150. We don't mind getting the money in here with such a strong hand. And surprisingly, both players do in fact fold here. So one player was very curious. He's a friend of ours. He's played with us a few times in our past 52 vlogs. He had a jack and he tanked for a while, knowing we're very capable of bluffing with just dry diamonds, but he does make the correct fold here, and we're going to show him this one later just so he has some peace of mind. Continuing along, it's another monster hand. We looked down at pocket queens, the ladies on the button straddle. The big blind jello limps to 6. We make it $30, and now he says, I saw you press record, and he folds, and I hate him because he knows that it doesn't mean anything. If you press record, you could press record as a bluff, but it is what it is, and we'll just have to take the dead money down in that one. Right along, we have ace, queen of diamonds in the +1. We open for $15. The low jack, who is jello, once again makes it $50. I make the call. Heads up to a flop against our good friend, who is king 6 on the flop, two clubs. We don't really flop any equity here. We check. Jello bets $35, and I'm just drawing the 3 outs, assuming he has a king, so I fold, and he shows me 6-9 offsuit here, so he gets us back for the 69 of spades in that earlier one. And then right along, we look down at pocket deuces in the small blind. The +1 limps. Hijack makes it $15. Button calls. We obviously make the call looking to set mine. The big blind and the +1 also call. So a lot of people going to the flop on this one. 5 players, 9, 6, 4, rainbow. Checks the button who bets $55. And I don't want to call here to try and hit a 2-outer multi-way out of position. And I could already be dead to them having a better set already. There's a lot of people that could just be flatting here with their pocket pairs as well, trying to set mine like us. So just a lot of reverse implied odds trying to hit a 2-outer, which doesn't make any sense. So this is a pretty clear-cut fold. This is a fun one. We have jack 4 of hearts on the button straddle. The big blind, who is jello, makes it $26. The cutoff calls, and I call myself on the button straddle, completing action. 3 players to flop, which comes ace, king, 9, 2 spades in a club, and it surprisingly checks through. Jello's supposed to be c-betting a lot of this flop, given that this is just his range. So the only hands that he should be checking here are something like ace, king, pocket 9s, pocket aces, and pocket kings. The turn is the deuce of diamonds here, and the big blind checks once again, cutoff checks. So there's no way any value hand or even a hand with equity would check 2 streets, given it's such a wet dynamic board, unless they really just do have aces or kings. So we just overbet to polarize and force a lot of king X's to fold a lot of the time, and even drawing hands as well, like spades. So we just go for $110 into the $80 pot, and both players fold. So viewer asked me to put in some more bluffs and explain them. So this is just one of those spots where you just have to kind of read the table, know how the action's going and what they're limited to. And obviously, if you get called in this spot, you're probably drawing dead, as given they're probably trapping something like aces and kings. But this is definitely just one of the things where you just have to analyze a spot and then go with your reads. If you're wrong, so be it. Sometimes you're going to be wrong, but it's nice to pick up dead money like this with jack high, 9 high, whatever it might be in your spots. Moving right along, though, we have ace, queen of spades in the big blind. The button straddle is on. We open for $30, both the undergun and button call. 3 players to flop, which comes ace, 7, 5, 2 clubs and heart. We flop top pair with the second best kicker. And we're just going to c-bet here for $50, very standard, and both players fold. This one's definitely an interesting one. We look down at another ace X hand. This time it's ace 10 offsuit on the button straddle. The +1 and hijack both limp to 6. And surprisingly here, I'm going to check it because I'm going to disguise my hand strength for 2 reasons. One, the +1 had just bluffed the previous hand, and then two, the hijack had just tilt called him and he was good. So both these players are kind of a little bit tilty right now, and we're just going to disguise his hand. Flop is king 7-5 rainbow, and obviously we don't have any equity on this board, so when it checks us, we're just going to check back. Turns now the ace of hearts, and this is just super disguised for us how we have top pair with a pretty good kicker. The +1 now leads out for $20. The hijack folds, and this is an easy call for us. River's the jack of diamonds, so it's definitely a semi-wet board, but we block things like queen 10, and we really do only lose to hands like ace king, ace jack that should be raising pre-flop. Ace 7, ace 5 might be in there, but if they have the two pair that beats us, then so be it. The +1 now bets $55. This is almost pot-sized bet. This is just an easy call for us. We only get called by better by raising, so yeah, the +1 has a 5-4 of hearts, so they turn the heart draw, and we're just bluffing with bottom pair there. So like I said, super disguised hand, and we were able to maximize value there. This one's a super interesting one. We have 9-8 offsuit on the button straddle, small blind, big blind, limp to 6. Low jack makes it 30. We're going to go ahead and make the call, and the small blind, big blind follow suit and make the call as well. 4 players to the flop, which comes jack, 10, 4, 2 diamonds, and a heart. We have open-ended at least. No diamond in our hand though. Small blind, big blind check, and the low jack C bets here for $50. Obviously, this is an easy call. Open-ended. We have a lot of implied odds, so we do go ahead and make the call. Small blind folds, and the big blind calls as well. 3 players continuing to the turn now, which is the 8 of diamonds. So completing that front door diamond draw, we do turn a pair now to go with our open-ended. The big blind checks, and the low jack surprisingly checks here. When we think about it, they should be continuing a lot of with their diamonds multi-way. They could be trapping here and looking for a big river bet, but when they check here, it means that they have a lot of less diamonds, and they usually just have some type of jack X hand. So we're just going to go ahead and check this one back with our showdown and try to get there with our straight. River, however, is the 4 of spades, so we do not get there. The big blind checks once again, which means he's very unlikely to have diamonds. He would want to go for value here, so he would probably lead out, which leads me to think that the big blind doesn't really have anything whatsoever. Maybe something like king queen in this spot. The low jack now bets $80 into a pot of $270. It's such a small value bet, but I think for that price, we just had to call. We beat a lot of hands that could have been bluffing, like I said, king queen. So if they both have the same hand, then so be it. But he also has a lot of like ace king, ace queen, with maybe one diamond in his hand that he could be bluffing. But this is just such a small sizing, and given that he checked the turn, he should be really barreling with a lot of his ace X diamond holdings and diamonds that make it there just to go for value multi-way. And even a jack X hand might down bet the turn or check back river because of showdown value. So we go ahead and make the call, and the big blind folds, and our 9-8 offsuit is actually good. So nice to take some of those hands down every now and then and just be correct with our reads. In this one, we have 8-7 of hearts, and the +1 we opened for $15, and only the cutoff calls here. Heads up to a flop, which comes queen 8-7, 2 diamonds of spades, so we flop bottom 2 pair. We go for a C bet of $20, obviously going for value, and given that this should hit our range with some type of queen X, and the cutoff calls here. Turns a king of clubs, so the only thing that beats us now would be something like king queen, or something that he might have called with queen 8, queen 7 suited, but very unlikely that he called pre-flop with those hands. So we're going to continue here, barreling pot this time for $75, trying to get called by a queen X hand, and the cutoff surprisingly calls once again. River's the queen of spades, so it's a really bad card for us, obviously. We had to check this one, and the cutoff reaches for greens, and this is just a snap fold from us. He's just going to have a lot of queen X's a lot of the time, non-believing us on the turn, and then just getting there with chips on the river. So we fold that one, unfortunately, after flopping 2 pair and lose a bit of money in that one. In this one, we have ace-king offsuit under the gun. The button straddle is on. What is up with waking up with all these big slicks today? Just feels so good. Small blind, big blind, limp to 6. We pop it up to $50, and surprisingly, the hijack and small blind call, and the big blind fold. So 3 players to flop now, which comes 9-5-5 rainbow. Small blind checks. We're just going to barrel this one. We have a lot of overpairs in this spot, even though this does not hit our range. We're going to go for a bet of $90, trying to take it down with ace high. They shouldn't really have anything unless they did connect like with ace 5 or something, 5-6, 5-4. But if they call $50 pre-flop with those types of hands, and more power to them. The hijack folds, and the small blind now raises up to $225. This is a huge raise, and we can't continue here with ace high. So we're just gonna have to let this one go and move on.
Three players.
Set of 10's no good. A4 no good.
We chop the middle.
No bluffs, no one.
What's up, everyone? So I just finished the session at TCH Houston, in the game for 2,000, out of the game for 2370. That's a profit of $370. Yeah, pretty solid session. Nothing too crazy. There was definitely spots where we wish we could have printed against certain people, but it is what it is. And solid session overall. There was a hand I wasn't able to record because I was writing down hand histories, but I had King 10 of clubs in the big blind. The small blind limps to 6 on the buttered and straddle. We make it 40. The under the gun calls, and then the small blind calls, the button straddle folds. 3 players to flop, which King 4 deuce 2 hearts. We c bet for, I believe it was 50 into 120. The under the gun calls and the small blind folds. The turn was the 10 of hearts, so bringing that front door flush draw. King 4 deuce 10 3 hearts. We continue for 105 into, I think it was 226, and the under the gun calls once again. He's a relatively snug player, so some alarm bells were already going off. The river was the queen of clubs, I believe, and we go for a block bet of 150. If he raises, we can easily just fold. Like, it's very likely he has something like hearts or something, but he ends up flatting, and that's not a good sign either, because he was relatively snug all day, and he ends up having a set of 4s, so that was unfortunate. But we did close out the session for the night with pocket 8s in PLO, and where we flopped a set, and one of the spots paid us off with 2 pair. So we were able to climb back, obviously, and end the session on a profit, which was good. Jello, you saw, he left our 1-3 with maybe like $300 profit, something like that. He was in for 500, out for like 800-900 on the 1-3. Went over to the 1-2 because he saw a good friend of ours, which is a Spot, and yeah, he was in the 1-2 for like 300 and out for like almost, I want to say 1,000 or something. So printed more in the 1-2 in shorter amount of time than in the 1-3, which is crazy. But you're gonna find action in games like that at TCH Houston, where the 1-2 is just so much juicier sometimes, because people can be losing like $100 to $300 at a time, even though it's a capped buy-in game. So sometimes there are gonna be better 1-2s than there are 1-3s, depending on who's in the game. But yeah, that's it for this session. If you made this far, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one, guys. Peace.